you've been an avid cricket fan for a long time, and so I wanted to ask you that do you think that what we see now, starting with the Hansi Cronje affair and all the match fixing scandals that have unfolded over the years, is this a new phenomenon, or is it just that in this age of the media and the electronic?
It is both, I would say, that it's not, the underperformance was not there earlier. Sometimes it was for parochial reasons, political reasons. Some regions of India also had it, in the sense that if a bowler is from the region which you don't like, then sometimes catches have been known to be dropped. But after the money came into cricket, it has become more frequent.
So what do you think about the T20 format? How has it impacted the game in general? Do you think it's damaged Test cricket?
I would say one thing, that the T20 format is a good format as long as it is not taken too seriously by the cricketers. You see, what had happened is, we have bowlers who can bowl only 4 overs. They don't have the stamina even to bowl 10 overs for a 50-over match. So I would think that to that extent, and as far as the batsmen are concerned, many of the batsmen now can't play one session, let alone play the whole day, as Dravid and Lakshman played in Calcutta to win as a test match. So I think it's extremely important that the level of concentration which is required in T20 is much less, and therefore we are having a positive impact of it is the test matches are now being hardly drawn, So that's a positive part of it. The negative part, as you well know, is that batsmen don't have staying power. The bowlers do not bowl to take wickets. Spinners do not flight. And so the other positive part is the fielding has improved tremendously.
Lalit Modi had at one time predicted that the IPL would become the biggest source of revenue for the BCCI, and it seems that things are going that way. And as you said, T20 lends itself very well for entertainment, and because it finishes in 3.5 hours. So, what do you think of this IPL format?
Look, IPL as a format is a good thing for the players. It gives them money, sometimes too early, and for very young boys who are just stepping into adulthood. It is also in the sense that it gives them exposure to world-class cricketers, rubbing shoulders with the best batsman in the world, the best bowler in the world, would give them not only experience, but if you were able to bowl a good over or take a wicket of a celebrated batsman, it will instill tremendous confidence in a youngster. Or if you were able to hit a very famous bowler, then I think it gives a kind of confidence which is very good. However, the social evils which attach themselves to IPL, such as this late night parties, sponsors parties, suddenly youngsters who come from small towns, and one of the welcome things of Indian cricket is now it is producing champions from non-traditional centers, like previously it was only Bombay and Madras and perhaps Bangalore, later on Delhi, but now it's producing from small towns, which is a wonderful thing. But when they suddenly rubbing shoulders at a party with some celebrity they've only seen on the magazine or on the silver screen, then it is possible that they may lose their balance.
So is it just a coincidence that people like Vijay Mallya, Subrata Roy, etc. are putting in so much money, even though they publicly state that they have no money for investors and employees? Is the IPL a big money laundering front for such individuals?
With that, I have no idea whether it could be that, because that's really a tax angle. So I can't say whether it's a money laundering angle. Look, money, if it comes in through sports, is a good thing. It will eventually go to sportsmen and sport establishments. So nothing wrong in that, but it should be the right kind of money. I agree with you.
What do you think about the way BCCI is structured, and do you think that it needs to be reformed or made more accountable?
More accountable, yes. I think the RTI should be applicable to the public activities of BCCI. It should be not to what salary it pays to its employees and all, but certainly to the activities that impact players, the reviewing public in general, how much money is spent on upgradation of stadiums, how much of that money is actually spent, that kind of a thing, certainly it should be available to RTI.
So, sir, should it be headed by cricketers instead of politicians and businessmen?
Look, I have nothing against a politician or a businessman heading a sports body, but it must bring in positive contribution, because not always have sportsmen proved to be very good administrators. Ideally, it would be very nice if a cricketer is an administrator, because he understands the technical part of it, the physical part of it, the professional part of it, which a businessman or politician would not understand. But the businessman brings in money, politician brings in pull.
One of the other things, after the spot fixing controversy surrounding Mayappan exploded, it has emerged that many Indian players are actually officially employed by Indian Cements. I mean, Dhoni was the vice president, but so are players like Dravid, etc., are also on the officially employed. Do you think that this creates a conflict of interest?
Well, employment per se does not. Give you an example. For years, public sector undertakings like Air India, ONGC have been employing sportsmen. Air India has had a very good hockey team. It was one of the top teams in the country. And providing employment to sportsmen per se, there is nothing wrong. I mean, please remember there was a time when a sportsman, after his zenith was gone, many were absolutely penniless after that. They were destitute. Now, an employment gives a guarantee that even after my cricketing days are over, I will be getting a regular source of income. Employment per se, there is nothing wrong. Conflict of interest can arise in other ways, like the selector being from one of the IPL franchisee. Now, then it creates problems, because even if a person is fair, inherently either he will be biased for, or he will bend over so much to show that he is fair that he may overlook one of his own team players. So you have to balance both.
So, how rampant in your assessment is the practice of match fixing, and how can it be curbed? Is cricket a sport that inherently lends itself to fixing more easily than, say, a sport like football?
Cricket in spot fixing perhaps lend itself more, but otherwise football, there are many occasions. Football fixing is very rampant in many developed countries also. Every year there is something which is unearthed, because people bet on a corner. People bet which side will get the first corner, which side will do the first header, and which goalkeeper will touch the ball first. So there are bets on these kind of things also. So the other is, match fixing is not as rampant as it is thought to be.
Do you think that this current trend that we see of attacking players' houses, this happened when Dhoni underperformed and most recently with Yuvraj Singh, is this a recent phenomenon in Indian cricket, or have you seen this throughout when, let's say, Gavaskar made his 36 not out?
I wouldn't say it's a recent phenomenon, but it is now more participated more by people because of the reach of the media now, especially the visual media. It has been there. This is the mentality of our nation. We will idolize too much and will bring down people very fast also. I don't think it is right, even unless you know that he has deliberately played badly. But even then, that doesn't justify stoning the house or anything. But I think that is very, very wrong.
So also you were saying about test stadiums and how they should be utilized, and you were citing the example of Zimbabwe. What would you suggest or recommend?
You see, one of the reasons why test matches have no atmosphere now, the stadiums are not crowded. You see the Ashes tests, it is full, all 5 test matches, all 5 days. Unfortunately, because of the proliferation of one days and thereafter T20s, the audience of test cricket has declined. T20 brings in families who are not going to come in for a 5-day test match. You know, large number of ladies attend, which is a very welcome thing. The crowd behavior improves because of that. But I have seen test matches for all 5 days. The stadiums used to be jam-packed, even if India was losing. And I don't know an instance in Calcutta, of course I didn't see it, we only heard about it, that India was to play for another 20 minutes, lose 3 or 4 wickets, 1 or 2 wickets, or 20 runs or something. And the stadium was jam-packed. This was a match against West Indies, to watch India lose. And this is the love of the cricket. What could be done, according to me, is that please permit students from less affluent schools, government schools, to attend test matches free. You have so much money, sponsor their visits and fill up the stadium. One day you will get another Tendulkar or Dravid or Kumble or Prasanna from these schools. You may kindle an interest.
As you said, the Ashes is a classic example of a test series which is still very popular. Even in India, people watch it on TV throughout for all 5 days. How come there is no regular test series between India and Pakistan? Or
that's for political reasons. But if there is a regular test series, I'm sure, but also the pitches must improve. Our pitches are dead, and there must be some interest created in the match also. Nobody is going to watch a dreary match, especially when you have an alternative. Previously, there was no alternative to test cricket. I mean, it would come once in 3 years to Delhi and one would go and see it. Now, there's so much alternative on TV. Forget everything. There was no TV then. So TV means that you watch good matches elsewhere. See soccer, how many people watch English Premier League? Why do you think now nobody goes to watch Indian football matches, which used to be full once upon a time? The DCM and Durand in Delhi, the stadiums used to be full. From quarter-final onward, you wouldn't get a seat. But today nobody is going because they are watching high level of soccer in the Spanish Primera Liga or the English Premier League. They are watching the world's best players playing. Who's going to then go and watch our standard, which is, I think we have been upgraded by 5 places to 147. And in 1956, India was a semi-finalist in Melbourne Olympics in football. That's how much we have plummeted. And that shows what the role of the AIFF, that is All India Football Federation, has been.
A lot of people, especially the older generation, feel that this kind of aggressive attitude that Virat Kohli and a lot of the other young players symbolize, it's very different from Kumble, Dravid, Tendulkar, the kind of attitude which was associated with them.
I think you should go back in time. Earlier people like Manjrekar, that is Vijay Manjrekar, Sanjay Manjrekar's father, that time. Look, this attitude is necessary. When you're playing Australians, Englishmen, hedging goes on, racist comment go on. And please don't believe the racism is dead in cricket. Huh? It exists. And perhaps one of the contributions of Mr. Srinivasan is he's been able to fight the white supremacy in the international cricket, the ICC. So you see, there it is there. You see a mediocre player like Chris Broad. How many test matches he played, and how many matches has he been a match referee, and how biased are his decisions depending on the country of which the delinquent belongs to. So it is there. I mean, it's become latent. It become now more subtle. So aggressiveness, to meet aggressiveness is very necessary. It is Saurav Ganguly who set the trend when he managed to outwit Steve Waugh, the Australian captain, by deliberately going late for the toss, keeping him waiting and on. And that was necessary. Otherwise, we were considered very good losers, very sporting in losing. I mean, there's nothing wrong in being sporting in losing, but you should not lose because of attitude.
Do you feel that in international umpiring, racism still plays a part in the umpire's decisions as well?
No, I haven't felt that, but I have felt that in match referees. There is a reason for that. The umpires are under so much TV scrutiny today, and they are rated by the captains after the end of the series. So it's not easy. If somebody wants to continue, then it won't be if the captains rate him badly, and his TV replays show that 9 out of 10 decisions of his are wrong. I'll give you an example. An umpire, Steve Davis, who's very fair. One can't accuse him of any bias. But in every match he makes 1 or 2 howlers, and yet he continues to be on the elite panel. Now, so the bias is there in match referees, because match referees' actions are not open to scrutiny, because there's no TV replays there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for
Thank you very
speaking
much.
with us.